Oh,
Where
the crying shame.
It says
I
waiting.
you did a great job, but
It was great. It was good. I need you to do that again, but with more energy. Okay,
Oh,
bump it up a little bit.
Don't have another one in me.
Now we are streaming.
Now we're good. Yes.
And we're
Welcome
live
to the State of Ally 2022. I am your host, Jesse Tomchuk, my co-host, Adam, who has done the countdown for us. I was going to ask him to do the countdown again for us. You're going to have to get the bootleg the bootleg version to find out all the shenanigans that we just went through. We'll have to post that later. This is one of my favorite state ofs. It's brought to you by This Dot. We provide architectural guidance, staff augmentation, on-demand subject matter expert, one-to-one pairing, open source strategy and support. We do all sorts of stuff. We do lots of fun stuff, greenfield, brownfield, all sorts of projects. We'll come in and make everything better for you. If you need us to live stream on YouTube, that, is hit or miss sometimes. We will be live eventually. That is my guarantee. I want to thank some of our clients. This is just a few of our wonderful clients. We love our clients. They're all great. I like working with them. Even all of them, everybody says that. We don't have a bad client. We've done a really good job, and people are really happy to work with us, and we're super happy to work with all of them. We're also hiring. If you are in the tech industry, you may have hit a bump or two in your large enterprise, and they may be downsizing a little bit, but that's okay, because the work isn't going anywhere. So I don't know what they're doing, because you can come work with all these fine people. Look at those happy faces. This is after a lot of sugar and a lot of coffee. I think first thing in the morning, we got everyone to sort of smile and be silly. We've got more events coming up. So the State of Ally, I told you, is one of my favorites. There's Women in Tech, which is the second Tuesday, Thursday of every month. It's December 14th this month. So we also have State of React, which is always a big hit. In February, we have State of Web Performance, and then State of Node, coming into 2023. So if your Christmas shopping isn't done, you are just SOL, and you can get through the holidays and come to the State of React. I am your host, Jesse Tomchuk. I'm a software architect at This Dot Labs, and my co-host,
I'm Adam Barrett, also working at This Dot Labs,
who I thought was going to count down from 5 to 0, and then tell us about him.
That would have been good. I should have done it.
You should have done that. But you've heard enough about me. You've heard enough about Adam. Let's meet our panelists. We've got a pile of panelists. This is why the show is so much fun, because we have so many panelists. Amy, let's start with you.
Okay. Hi, I'm Amy Kearney. I'm a digital accessibility specialist. I'm an independent freelance. I run my own company, Digiloo, and I just get to do a variety of work that way. It's fun to meet new people and do auditing or remediation, just guiding people along. And I've been in accessibility for about 5 years. And you might recognize my face as the one advertised who did the 100 days of A11Y blog when I was working towards certification. So.
Oh, we might have to ask you about certification and what that entails.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about it.
I think did you read ahead on our list of questions? Because that's one of them in there.
I didn't see the question. Somehow I didn't get that document.
My last email.
Winging it.
All right. Adrian, what about you? Let's hear from you.
So I am Adrian, or Adrian. I'm an accessibility software engineer. I think, I've been in accessibility around the same as Amy, like 4 or 5 years. And I got into it because of giving talks in a conference, and I'm looking for a topic that it was interesting both technically and, of course, morally. And I'm more into testing web accessibility, how to find vulnerabilities and learn more about how to fix them, and of course, how to not repeat them.
That would be nice. Sort of regression testing for accessibility, because it's not a one and done, is it? I can see everyone's like, oh, they just shake their heads in slow, awkward, just pay. Like, no, it's not. Let's keep going through the list, and then we'll get to the meat of the conversation. Albert, how about you? How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for asking. I'm Albert Kim. My pronouns are he, him. I'm a neurodivergent Asian man in 30s. I work as a digital accessibility specialist as well. I'm most passionate about two missions in accessibility. First, neurodiversity and mental health inclusion, and growing the future accessibility champions. So I founded Accessibility NextGen to build a supportive community for accessibility champions who want to learn more about accessibility and become an accessibility champion. I live in LA, and I'm a big foodie. During my free time, I explore different food scenes, dessert, ice cream. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you. I want to ask you, best burrito in LA. Ready, go.
Happy
Which one?
Taco.
Happy Taco. All right.
Yeah.
I'm headed out there soon, and I need to know best burrito place.
You gotta know.
Gotta know. These is what we're here for. Best burrito place in LA. Happy Taco. Beatrice,
Hi,
have you
my
had
name
Happy
is.
Tacos?
No, that's more Mexican than Spanish, but we can talk about that later.
Here comes the drama.
Here comes the drama. You wanted some drama. So, hey, my drama starts with my name pronunciation, which I'm going to spare you. So, my name is Beatriz González Mellidez. I'm also known as Bea or B. And when I introduce myself, I always say that I am an inclusive user experience professional. I'm based in Cologne, in Germany, living here for the last 13 years. I'm from Spain. When we talk about certifications, so I a bit like Pokemon around it. So, I got to catch them all. Right now I have like 4 different certifications from the IAAP. So I am professional certified in web accessibility and also ADS for documents. And I am a user requirements engineer in the UX Foundation and user requirements engineer specialization. And I work for Atos as head of accessibility and digital inclusion in Central Europe since February this year. So this is officially my first role in accessibility, which is a big hit, kind of. But I've been working in accessibility since the early 2000s, more or less, mid. Yeah.
That goes way, way back, since before social media.
Yes.
Back
No,
when
at the
what-
beginning of Facebook. The beginning of Facebook, more or less. Yeah.
Is that? Oh, see, everything
it
we
was-
needed like 20 years ago was like, but that must have been before Facebook, right?
Yeah, maybe
I feel like the
oversight there.
90s was like a few years ago, so I have no frame of reference at all.
You know,
No, in the
in the
90s,
90s.
I was still in school, high school.
I'm sure I was in high school like what 10 years ago, probably. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, you don't look a day older than 22 or 23.
I mean, yeah, that's what I keep saying.
All right, let's keep going. I have tried to pronounce this name. I spent like 20 minutes an hour ago working on this. Shruti?
Close.
Nah, that's not close. Don't patronize me. I'm so sorry. Please, how?
No, that's fine. Everyone, my name is Shruti Kapoor. The way I kind of say Shruti is like the T is kind of like the Spanish T, Shruti.
Shruti?
Yeah, so I don't know if that helps, but I feel like the T is kind of like the Spanish T, like in tortilla.
Like Happy
Shruti.
Taco.
Shruti.
Shruti. Okay.
Yeah,
I like
there you
looked it
go.
up, and I had Alexa tell me, and I had Google Speak tell me, and I was like, okay, I think I got this. I was like, I'm totally gonna step on it.
No problem. Hey everyone, my name is Shruti Kapoor. I am a software engineer at Slack. I joined Slack like almost 6 months ago. If you've ever used Huddles, I worked on making Huddles accessible. It was super fun. This is my first time being in the State of Ally panel, but I'm super excited to be here. I've done the State of GraphQL and State of React panels before, and they're always really fun. So I'm very excited to be here.
We are super happy to have you here. Everyone who uses Huddles and video Huddles, I want to give you a shout out and say thank you. It's super great to be in there, and it's something I didn't even know I needed. It's like, oh, we just hop in and out. It's super casual and less stressful than like spinning up a meeting, which doesn't seem like it would have a lot of friction, but is super like, nah, I don't feel like it. I talk to my coworkers a lot more now. Even Adam.
Even
Um,
me.
Even Adam.
And our last panelist, certainly not the least.
super YouTube star of the night, Crystal.
Yes, with all like 200 people subscribers, I am, Mr. Beast has to watch out because, I'm, it's only a
Crystal's
matter of
coming
time.
for you.
Yeah.
Drowning in internet dollars, are we?
Yes. I am Crystal, and I'm the senior digital accessibility analyst at Salesforce. A lot of people always want to know is like what that means. And I am actually kind of tasked with internal accessibility for Salesforce employees. So I'm the person that when employees they face any sort of inaccessible barriers as they are doing their job, I'm the person that goes in and, tries to get rid of those barriers as quickly and best as possible. I'm based in Denver, Colorado. We're potentially going to have like some really a blizzard coming in the next maybe 24 hours or not, because Colorado is very weird when it comes to its weather. But yeah, you can also, I do some stuff on YouTube, with accessibility sometimes. So you probably will get recommended one of my videos if you are viewing this not live and you're coming this later as a recording.
Or, if you happen to mention the word accessibility near a phone
Yes,
or
exactly.
a camera of any type, it'll be recommended to you. That's just how it works. So before we kick off this discussion we're going to have about the current state of accessibility, well, maybe not before. Let's dive right into it. Let me start by pushing the conversation in a certain direction. So we often talk about web accessibility, specifically, for web apps and websites. But more and more content that we're kind of consuming lately is on mobile devices with apps or voice assistance of, the various different products you can buy. So my question is sort of, how does accessibility play a role in our overall digital lives? If anyone wants to go first.
So I will go first. Accessibility plays a huge part in, in technology and, everyone's digital lives, because the thing is that we're at a point is that, when it comes to digital technology, it is a necessity of modern life. There is, when it's like, when I was growing up, kind of, I was in that very in between part where you could do a lot, not online, not have to worry about, being on a computer. That is pretty much not something you can get away with today, like in the United States, and really fast growing throughout the world. I know, I try to always be mindful that I have a very American US kind of centric mindset. And so, when it comes to America, yeah, you really do need to be, connected, and that, be it a desktop, laptop, a smartphone, it is a necessity. Applying for jobs is pretty much all takes place online, even if it's retail jobs. A lot of times I've seen, people, they've had their grandparents are like, you just can go up and apply in the store. And no, if you go to say Target or Walmart, they actually have kiosks where they're going to put you at the kiosk to apply for a position, even if it's not a developer position. So technology is a necessity, not a luxury. And so that means things need to be accessible and for everyone, and especially for people with disabilities. Because it's like we're expected to live our life and and to be online. So that means and use technology for for convenience. So that means and convenience and also business related things. And so that means it has to be accessible. Now, the saying that it has to be accessible and it actually being accessible is two different things. But yeah, when it comes to accessibility is a necessity, because technology is a necessity, and they should go hand in hand.
You know, I advocated the other day, we were talking about technology and, electricity, clean water, internet access,
Yeah.
a roof over your head are pretty quickly becoming fundamental basic needs, like just table stakes. Um, I remember driving around in high school and picking up paper applications from like a dozen places. And then you go home and you fill them all out. And then you drive back around, you go in there and hand it in wearing your best clothes and like, hey, do you have a minute to talk to the manager? Like that doesn't exist anymore. You need a phone to fill out. Even unbanked people who do not have bank accounts require a phone to transfer money, whether through, SIM chips or other things throughout the world. And I think everybody needs accessibility. Even like one of the things that I think of is as a parent, like I needed accessibility help when I had 2 children in my arms and one on each hip and didn't have a free hand. And that lasted maybe 2 years where it's like, I don't have a free hand. I need a better door. I need a door to open for me. Like I need help. And that's the frustration that I think of when you say everyone needs accessibility. Like at a certain point, everyone needs accessibility. Sooner or later, they need something. And it may be small and it may be temporary and it may come and go, but everybody needs some at some point. I always think of that frustration and it really gets me riled up. What about Amy? What do you think about the role that technology is playing in mobile devices and apps and stuff? Are we doing a good job in accessibility on the mobile front?
Well, as somebody who needs accessibility, because I'm right on in that visual low vision world, I feel like tech has done amazing things for me. That's kind of one of the reasons I'm in tech, because I get that connection. I can do things, I can enlarge things. But I'm still kind of surprised in 2022 that it's like, how can you not let my text get bigger when I've asked my machine to make things bigger? Why is there still text and images which get really greeny when you go zoom in on them? And dark mode has been an amazing thing, but not everything accommodates dark mode. When you switch that setting, and I'm still clueless as to why. I'm a Mac user for the most part, and I don't understand why Mac doesn't do a high contrast mode like Windows does, because I really like that setting a lot. It offers a different experience than dark mode, even because there's more customization to it. And that's a whole nother topic about accommodating for Windows high contrast mode. But I don't understand that inverse thing for Mac, and my iPhone is just an awful, like not even comparable experience. So as much as Apple has done. So I don't know. I feel like we're more on this thing where it's like we gain a couple of steps and take a step backwards, and there's maybe not enough coordination or collaboration or talking to real people with disabilities. I'm not really sure what's happening, but there's some really good things. And then there's things that it's just like, why aren't we there yet? Because this isn't new information.
Beatrice.
Yes, I can totally relate to everything that's been said so far. So accessibility should be everywhere, and the reality is not quite there yet. As a parent of 2 children, I have a 4-year-old and a 1.5-year-old. I still rely very much on the one hand handling of the devices. I have always something going on the other hand. And with all the kids being sick lately, there's always one in your lap while you're working. So sticky keys and all those things are a great advancement. You also have on the other side, so the intersectionality of it. So I come from Spain. I live in Germany for 13 years. And for example, at home, we only watch movies in original soundtrack. So we always have the captions activated because the children are always sleeping, or there's a neighbor who complains about the noise. So we rely also on subtitles and captions for support. We may not identify as disabled, but we are aware that we are disabled by certain circumstances and situations, and we benefit from all the things that the disability community have fought so hard for. So yeah, there's a lot of apps that I rely on a daily basis. So as you mentioned, internet is a basic write. Basically, I couldn't talk to my mom if it wasn't thanks to the internet. So there's a lot of things that make our lives easier, and it's also on the other side, it's a lot of overcomplication. So there is so much sources of information, so much misinformation to where we have to filter from. So yes, it's enabling on one side and disabling on the other side. It's a balance that we have to reach for.
I think the closed captioning is such a great point, because we often don't think about people who are using closed captioning to like view videos, or like just like because they are maybe impaired, or maybe because because they have a really actual need of putting the volume down and turning the subtitles on. And like another example in real life is like watching Netflix. You often have closed captioning on for whatever reason, and that's another way we like use the benefits of accessibility or the features of accessibility. I think whenever I think of accessibility, the ramp that you usually use to like take stairs often comes to my mind, because at airports you usually notice there's a ramp that people can take if they are on wheelchairs or if they've got suitcase. And just imagine like not having access to that ramp or like an elevator to go up a flight of stairs when you have like hands full of suitcases. So you're actually benefiting from accessibility features even in real life. Another example that comes to my mind is like our parents who may be getting older use actually like magnified text or like zoomed in icons on their phone, right? And again, they may not identify as somebody who is impaired in some sense, but still has an actual need of using an accessibility feature. So I feel like we often like assign accessibility features to like this group of individuals, but actually it's a need for a lot of the people.
Yeah, if I can add something, it was funny because I sometimes consume data in the development world and maybe some YouTube shorts or Instagram reels about the topic, and I've seen recently a lot of like, let me tell you a tip on how to make better screenshots. Go to accessibility settings and set the zoom in, so you can 3 taps in your phone, and then you're gonna get zoom with better quality, so you're gonna have a better screenshots. That means that is a very clear example of how an accessibility feature benefits more people than disabled people. The same as Shruti said, like if you go to a building and then there's a ramp, I would never ever say like, oh, sorry, I would not use the ramp because I'm not disabled. I would not use it. Like, of course, you can use it if you're tired, if you have a luggage, if you have a trolley with a kid. Of course, we are benefiting from real world accessibility enhancement, of course. So why not benefit from the enhancement in a digital world? I think the question started off web accessibility, and I think we are all moving more into digital accessibility. It doesn't need to be a web environment for accessibility, but a digital product, and it doesn't matter what device you are in, and this is accessibility and diversity. So I think everyone is starting, maybe this is what I see, but I start seeing more people getting benefit from accessibility enhancement more and more for different purpose, and I'm happy with that. I'm happy if you see it as a good thing for your screenshots and you want to suggest it in your reels, go for it. So yeah, we are getting benefit from that.
Anyone else want to chime in on that?
I want to chop in about digital workplace. So there are more and more tools. For example, Microsoft and Google are investing a lot in digital workplace applications so that we can all provide as employees better slides, better documents that are accessible for our coworkers, and they are included. So that would be another shout out outside of the web world, that also the operative systems are including a lot of accessibility. So Amy mentioned that Apple doesn't have any high contrast like Windows. They have other options like inversion, like she mentioned, and things like that. But for example, I love that they have the head pointer. I think it's more of a game maybe, but it's for me, it's a game changer that is part of the operative system, that you don't have to install anything, you don't have to pay for anything, and you can move. If you have a bad week because you've been holding the baby for too long, you can just activate the head pointer and you can move your mouse by moving your head and getting your head in between your mouth. But there's a lot of things that we have by default. So the whole caption and auto captioning as an operative system default in Apple and Windows devices, for example, or Android and iOS. There's a lot more things coming on from the main vendors that everyone can benefit from. Almost nobody knows about them. And the thing is that as soon as you put the accessibility tag on it, it seems like people are not interested on that. So sometimes there's a way of rebranding it. Sometimes I think many accessibility experts have been talking about rebranding the word accessibility because it doesn't have a good name in some cases, because it's been maybe linked too much to litigation and too much stick and too less of a carrot, which I think is important too. But I think, for example, when I tell my colleagues that they can decrease in Outlook the meetings from 1 hour to finish 10 minutes before the full hour or 5 minutes before the 30 hours, and I call it well-being, people are more open to use it than if I call it an accessibility support. So there's a lot of things going on in this type of operative system and desktop applications that is worth mentioning too.
That's really interesting. I hadn't heard of that. So well-being is obviously a good example of like rebranding, but is there other words that like maybe have come up in the zeitgeist of like, oh, well, maybe instead of calling it accessibility, we should call it something else?
Digital inclusion, universal design, inclusive design. There is a gazillion ways to call it. We were discussing lately performance booster for employees, because at the end you help them be more performant and work better and faster, right? So it's a way of selling accessibility with different names. I would love to be, the best way would be to sell it as accessibility, disability, inclusion, but sometimes you need to adapt your language in order to sell it better, if it makes any sense.
Yeah, it absolutely does.
I love the idea
Until
of
we get
selling
there
it to the business as a performance enhancement or a performance boost, as opposed to an accessibility, or like from a capitalist like corporate, it seems like a real drain, like a cost. This is costing me money in accessibility, as opposed to we're investing in performance enhancing or performance boosting of our employees. Like even just the tone or the idea of that switch seems very like negative versus positive.
Yeah, I mean, at the end, it's the law. They have to do it even if they don't want to. But sometimes it's easier to get work around. Albert,
you had your hand up.
Yeah. I thank you everyone for bringing really good points. I think I just want to go back to what Jesse said in the beginning about how accessibility is not just for people with disabilities. First of all, there are I think that's really important to think that accessibility is not just for people with disabilities, because first of all, there's 3 different types of disabilities, right? Situational, temporary, permanent. Situational being, you're in a library, and you have to watch YouTube and you forget to bring earphone or headset and you have to turn on captions. And temporary being, you hurt your fingers or something and you can't use your fingers to navigate your computer. So you have to use a different device, different ways. So, and in addition to that, I think the importance of accessibility is rising even more because of the aging generations of first computer users as well, right? Microsoft Word first release was in 1983. And if you are 31 years old at the time, now you're 70 years old in 2022. And people who, there's an aging generation of computer users. And imagine, for example, you've been using a certain device that for your lifetime and it's really essential, but suddenly at a certain point you cannot use it anymore, because as we age, we get low vision, or our body ages, right? So things like that, I think it's a necessity for everyone. Amy said as well. Also, I think to add on to what others said about the digital trend and corporate side, I think that there has been a lot of interest, especially since COVID, towards digital accessibility because of the digital transformation, and now a lot of important government services or public services, you have to access it through online or digital device. So it's essential for everyone, civilians and everyone, to be able to access a computer. And for example, like DMV, like to renew your driver's license during COVID in the beginning, quarantine time, DMV physical offices were mostly closed, things like that. And also a lot of investment towards ESG, diversity inclusion, I think has definitely attracted more interest in digital accessibility. But I think I do want to also point out that a lot of those interests have been realistically, to be very frankly honest, have been focused around, I think, large companies, right? So still overall in general, startups or regular software engineers or any designers, you still see a ton of people who are not still familiar with digital accessibility or don't understand why it's important. And I think that a lot of even large companies, many are still trying to figure out. There's only a handful of companies that have established accessibility programs, right? Like Microsoft, Salesforce, Apple, Google. But I think a lot of companies are still trying to figure out, like, how do we do this? Because we now have to sell our softwares to government and Microsoft and different companies that require their products to be accessible, so that their employees with disabilities can use it. So there's definitely an interest, but I think it's at a very beginning stage still. So I think it's also really important to point out that we need to keep growing more accessibility champions, right? So I think there's a lack of labor supply in this field as well. And I think demand will continue to rise. Also, one last thing I wanted to point out is there's a huge need for research in this field, especially because, for example, cognitive and learning disabilities or invisible disabilities, mental health inclusion, there needs to be a lot more research towards how can people with, for example, OCD use web better, right? More accessibly. How can you make designs better for them or people with PTSD, right? I myself am neurodivergent. I have cognitive learning disabilities and mental health disorders. So those are very important issues for me. And as we all know, there's a rising anxiety and depression rate among especially young adults, people in colleges, 1 in 2, as far as when I saw the CDC national data last time, I think it was a few months ago. And it's really teenager suicide rate at the highest level, right? And mental health has a lot of significance nowadays, and it keeps rising. But I think there's a lack of research towards how do we make web and mobile accessible for them, right? And intersectional disabilities, right? So I think I just wanted to point out these things.
Great. So maybe switching gears a little bit. So in the year 2020, we saw like a bunch of the tech communities having massive layoffs. There were layoffs at big companies, small companies, just a huge amount. And I often hear rumors, at least, that accessibility teams are some of the first to go, or maybe in the group, because there's a lack of understanding or respect for the craft, whatever you want to call it. What would you all say is like the biggest struggle for accessibility in 2022? Like what happened? What was the biggest struggle over the last year? If that question makes sense.
I'd say the biggest struggle is always to get budget for it. To get budget, for example, for usability research and testing with people with disabilities, for co-creation. I think the biggest struggle is to hire more people with disabilities. I would mark those as the biggest struggles, to get the community to co-create and have a say on it.
I think as an engineer, the biggest struggle is convincing product owners that this is important and it needs to be baked in right from the get-go itself, instead of kind of doing it as a last hack of accessibility slap when we're almost ready to ship it out.
And I also want to add to what Beatrice said, that not just hiring more people with disabilities, but after hiring, how do we set them up for success, right? Yes, we need to increase, number of people with disabilities so that we can increase diversity and inclusion. But what about after? Like, how do we actually set them up for success? I think there needs to be a lot more focus into that as well.
As well. Oops, sorry.
I'm so sorry. I think, I think one of the fundamental things that kind of, with a lot of the things we're all saying, is how integrated ableism is, especially within, in companies. This leads to, accessibility teams being some of the first to go, is that, there is kind of how, still in, I don't even like to say still in 2022, because it's, it's never, there's never been a waning of ableism in how people really think about a disability and people with disabilities. A lot of misconceptions, a lot of stereotypes. And, I literally just did a video of like myths, and one of the biggest myths is that, people with disabilities don't use technology or the internet. And so if you have that as something that, your leaders in your companies and the people who are making these decisions really are thinking, well, no one with disabilities uses our products, uses our applications. Of course, like, then why would, if you're trying to save money, then hell yeah, you're going to get rid of the accessibility team, because no one with disabilities uses our, our products. And that really also feeds into why it's hard to get, accessibility, issues kind of moved and getting the attention that they need, getting budgets, anything that fundamental ableism that is, that really, not just, really all, it's not just companies, it's society wide, that really kind of, but really affects all this and drives a lot of that kind of action.
That is absolutely infuriating. Like, from a company, from a corporate standpoint, how many years did we cater to the dwindling percent of Internet Explorer users? How many of us here have spent months making bespoke versions for our dwindling Internet Explorer? At one point, it's like 4% of like, we have to cater to Internet Explorer. It holds back the entire product. And I think in my head, the community of accessibility is vastly larger than 4%. It's so much bigger than Internet Explorer, but I cannot tell you how many times I had to make this thing for Internet Explorer or not do this other thing because ... Internet Explorer. And like I'm grinding the back of my teeth thinking about these projects that I did for like this dwindling percent of users, when we are overlooking a larger swath of product, like, to a company's own detriment. You're leaving money on the table. You're leaving people out, products and services that people want, out customers that are willing to pay you out because you are like catering to Internet Explorer instead of the wider accessibility community. It just, it's so, okay, I'm done now.
I actually have that number, and I can tell you that percentage is 100% because everyone benefits from accessibility. But we already said that in the previous.
Breaking news: 100% is bigger than 4%.
I wanted to go back a bit of what Albert said, and so we mentioned about hiring, about the team, about the accessibility team, and what happened next. But I wanted to move to a bigger scale on the company, because not only for the accessibility team of a company, but sometimes we need to think about how to accommodate the internal tools that we have at a company. We are talking about like, oh, we are building this product and we want to be accessible for the market, but how do we do at home? How do we accommodate the tools that we use for a company? And when I mean tools, I don't mean digital tools. I mean, is it a meeting? Is it an interview? Is it a conversation? Is it a coffee talk? How do we communicate? Slack channels, if we use Slack, Microsoft Teams, whatever technology that you use. What is what we are doing to accommodate everyone's needs when we hire someone that, again, Albert mentioned it before, can be situational impaired, or it can be permanent impaired, or can be anytime in the future. I have to say to you and to those that who are watching, we are all disabled. We don't know in how much percentage and when we are going to be. So we need to understand this to accommodate as much as possible. And the same as we want to create a quality product, I always mention it, like, if you want to create the best product ever, since you don't know your user, your customer, whoever is going to use it, the only way that you can do it is to create it for everyone, right? So if you want a good one, then it has to be for everyone, because you don't know who's going to use it. So the same for every employee that you might potentially have. You need to accommodate to everyone in different ways, of course. Like we can, there's no 100% accessible, that doesn't exist. But sometimes the struggle is, of course, budget. We already mentioned it. Hiring more people with disabilities, and again, Albert mentioned it, like invisible disabilities are very strong topic that we are not covering enough. Cognitive, ADHD, etc. And how do we accommodate the tools that we use internally for those people?
It's very curious because you're mentioning basically digital transformation and culture. Accessibility cannot be taken outside and siloed outside of the company culture. So it has to be embedded in the culture. If it's only just a patch we test and we repair, then you're lost, because it's a lot of money and it keeps on having the bad name that it has. Because if you forget about accessibility, like any other defect you may found in software development or in physical development of products, it's going to be super expensive and it's going to be a pain in the ass, and pardon my French, because no engineer and no product team likes to retrofit something that somebody forgot along the way. So that's why you need to embed it from the beginning, like the first interviews, the first planning sessions, the first ideation, you need to have it there. Like Adrian mentioned, like you have to think about it when you do an interview. When you post a job position, you need to think if it's accessible, if anyone can access that job position, because that will affect the diversity and the inclusion in your teams. So it's a thing bigger than just doing some testing and repairing and being compliant with the law.
I know. So, at Salesforce, I'm in the Office of Accessibility, and, one of the, my particular role is, like I said in my introduction, is internal accessibility for our employees. So that is something that, I am, every day is my concern of, like, because how can you really provide that for your customers if you're not doing that for your employees. And then I have, I work with I have wonderful colleagues that, when it comes to accommodations, not just for, employees, but also those who are interviewing with us. And that's something that, when you talk about accessibility, yes, providing that in your products is very, very, very important. But it also, it means providing that for the people who are working on those products is important as well, because how can you provide that for the people who are buying your products if you're not providing that for those who are in, who are building it as well?
I think I want to go back to what Crystal said before. I think that the myth towards people with disabilities don't use technologies. Another thing that I want to mention is that actually it's the opposite. That for me, neurodivergent user, actually technologies are essential. It enables me to be able to manage my tasks and actually navigate and read, right? Because text to speech is like an essential technology for me, right? So I have ADHD, and for me, audiobooks do much better than textbooks, or audio messages do much better than text messages. So it enables me, and it's a necessity and essential for me, rather than, people with disabilities don't use it. And another thing is that I also think that not a lot of people, I think these assistive technologies, I think, can definitely benefit wider audience. But I don't think that many people know that these assistive technologies exist, or voiceover exists, and you can use that. For example, when I'm washing my dishes and I want to read article at the same time, multitask. You could do that, but I think a lot of people will benefit whether or not you have disability. But I don't think many people actually know still about the benefits of these technologies as well. So I think there needs to be a lot more public education towards that. And yeah.
I want to jump in. Chat GTP, AI, Stable Diffusion, Dolly, Midjourney has all just come like flooding onto the scene recently. And I wanted to get everyone's take on, is it accessible? Where does it fit into the dialogue? Like, does Chat GTP and does the AI video imaging and AI Stable Diffusion, can we ride as a community in digital accessibility and assistance? Can we ride this wave and push this to help out the larger group of everyone? Is this something that we can sort of attach onto and help use to promote this cause that everyone in this panel is so dedicated to? Is it embedded? Is it useful? Is it a tool to help move the needle for us? Or is it just fun? Is it like you mentioned speech to text, and that just sort of made me think of like, oh, there's this like chat AI and other stuff that is doing an amazing job. Is this helpful for us? Is this good for the community?
I'm gonna
go, Crystal. Tell us.
No, like, and so I'm, right off the bat, like I tend to, like, in my free time, I just spend a lot of time of looking at kind of, emerging technologies, and I can tell you right off the bat, like, the chat, was it GPT, is not really, it's not really accessible. A lot of this stuff, isn't accessible. Now this is where, you'll see, because these particular, when you talk about AI, especially around like, art, Web3, blockchain, these are very kind of controversial, kind of divisive technologies. And my opinion of like, where it's like, I have is something I really push is that no matter how you feel about it in a moral or ethical sense, it should be because this is how I feel. It's like my personal feelings about things, like if no matter what I feel, should it be accessible? Yes, if it's out there, it should be accessible. Now there's another conversation about how you feel on the like ethical grounds. That's a different conversation. But when it comes to access, these things should be accessible. But I do have concerns about where it's like these things aren't accessible, and then we have the talk about, well, needing to make them accessible, and then there kind of gets put into the argument of ethics and stuff like that, and it's like, well, it's complicated. I feel it's a very complicated topic. It's something that does need to be addressed, of when you feel something is to you personally is fundamentally immoral or or unethical, but if it's legal, do you still do you provide access to it? Do you make sure it's accessible? So that's kind of where these are some, I've talked about Web3. I've tried chat GPT, and just to see how accessible it is, kind of in as it's out there, and many of these things are not not really accessible for people with disabilities.
Beatrice.
I think, like Christian mentions, it's very important to say that all emerging and new technologies should be accessible, because if not something that doesn't start in an accessible way, it's very hard to make it real inclusive. Like we were saying, like retrofitting accessibility is not a nice task to have. And on the other side, I would say all these things are right now as great fun toys, but they can be pretty dangerous too, because there's no control. And when you talk about AI, if you get rubbish in, you get rubbish out. So depending on what you feed these AIs, that's what you're going to get. So there's not a lot of disability representation out there for these machines to feed on. If nobody creates that on purpose, it's not going to be there. So everything that is created with an AI is going to have a lot of bias involved, because the data we're feeding them is already biased. So in that sense, it's a bit tricky. I've been playing myself with this chat GPT, and I've been asking, how can we make developers provide accessibility by default, and make such, and it's fun. I have to admit, I had a lot of fun. I spent maybe 1 hour or 2 hours asking questions and getting responses. Most of them were pretty neat, but I guess it depends on what you ask, and these tools can be pretty easily used for misinformation.
Yeah,
So
I
it's
think
something we need.
Stack Overflow has run
Blocked
into that
it.
head, right, like smack in the face, right? They're getting flooded with answers that are generated from GTP chat that appear accurate, but take an enormous amount of human effort to actually like tease out that they are close, but not quite accurate, right? And I was thinking there's a service that to do chat image to text for automatic alt text. And I was wondering if it's accurate enough. Albert was talking about text to speech, and I was thinking image to text of general descriptions. Would that cover the gap in social media and web?
No,
because they're not great.
I have a strong opinion on that one, because the alt text should give you the intent of the author, and no artificial intelligence can guess what the author meant. So you may have a picture of a woman on a beach with a laptop on her lap working, and it can tell you, okay, it's in a beach, but it cannot tell you that maybe it's about motherhood or it's about something else, the intent that is behind this picture. So the alt text is meant to be manual for a reason, because the author should tell you why that image is there, or if it's just decorative, and then you don't need to bother people giving a huge detailed description of the picture if it's only decoration. Adrian, I think you wanted to say something.
Yeah, not only this one. I'm with you in the alt text. We, how do I say that? We have a lot of cultures in this world, and what something means good for you, it means bad for someone else. And artificial intelligence can tell in a picture of someone trying to slap someone in the face that there's two people and someone has the hand on top of their head. But it is the intention, as Beatriz said, like it is the action that you human recognize this pattern, which is a culture, which is a different pattern, that an artificial intelligence, again, we are not there yet. I don't know what is going to be in the future, but we are not there yet. That AI figure out the culture behind, the actions behind what. I'm not usually into, you need to describe the meaning of the picture. Obviously you need to describe as much detail as you can from the picture, but I like what Beatriz said, like as well the intention on how do you want to use this picture. Maybe a person, let's go to your example, a woman in a beach with a laptop on their lap, maybe it's not enough to give full context on where is this picture located. Is this picture located in an ad? Is this located in a text? Is it a complementary picture? Is not a complementary picture? So there is a bunch of things there that AI cannot do, again, yet, in my opinion. I haven't played much with it yet, but I feel that in the accessibility field, we need a human part, a something more moral, more human, a human touch that say this is the correct thing to do, this is wrong. Only, and this is exactly the same as automate testing. So we can only figure out 20 to 30% of the accessibility issues. I can tell you, going back to the images, I can tell automatically or automated if an image has an alt text, but I don't know the quality of this alt text. I always have a good friend of mine who is blind who said, if you put a dog playing with a ball and then in the alt text you said person naked, for me it's a person naked. You can trick me. And probably the automate test is going to be green and success because you have an alt text and it might be human readable. I can say, okay, it's a sentence with sense, but it is not what it is in the image. So if we are finding patterns, if we use artificial intelligence for very automated mechanic things, go on. If we are doing for things that we need this human touch, I don't think we are ready yet. Maybe it's a personal opinion.
And I want to add on to some of those points. So I think like so-called like the cheat keys, right? AI generated alt text or accessibility overlays or widgets, right? Automated, AI powered. Sometimes short path may be the longest path. The reason why I say that is actually overlays and AI power are actually sometimes it actually causes more problems for people with disabilities, and so I just wanted to mention that. And I think I know that they are very cost effective, but the challenge is that it's an important issue, because I want to one thing to point out, as Crystal said, we need to start thinking about digital accessibility from the beginning of product development process, and one of the biggest perks of doing that, advantage of doing that, is because it saves you cost, right? Because vast majority of time that you are going to spend in digital accessibility, if you don't do it in the beginning, is going to be testing and finding out where the defects are, and it's just whole a huge chunk of time and money spent, right? Capital. Whereas if you start, it's much better. And that's why I think that it's a realistic issue for startups and a lot of small to medium-sized businesses and companies to actually think about like these costs of accessibility as well, right? I think that's one of the reasons why only the large companies so far have been able to build accessibility teams and develop that accessibility. But I think so these kind of overlays and cheat codes can be very attractive for them, but you have to know that they are not actually the right solutions, because at the end of the day, people who are actually creating these technologies need to learn about accessibility and actually think about accessibility from the beginning, rather than, oh, I'm just gonna do whatever I want. I'm just gonna build shitty product, inaccessible, and then I'll just attach something and then make it accessible. And I think that there's a difference between compliance culture, legal compliance culture, versus actual care about inclusion. I think you may have a completely legally compliant web or technologies, but they may not be accessible. So I think there's a difference that we have to also think about.
And you got your drama there, Jesse.
Yes,
The accessibility overlays, that's what you wanted. I wanted to mention about the price. So the thing is that the accessibility overlays you pay per year. So at the end, it's much more expensive. An IAAP, the International Association of Accessibility Professionals membership, is much cheaper than that. And you get a huge information on trainings that you can do also as a small enterprise. It's just the lack of knowledge sometimes that is missing.
Yes, it's never a long-term sustainable solution.
It's good. I think it's interesting that the short-term solution, and I think we know this in a lot of other industries and tech and work that we do, the short quick will always end up being more expensive and worse at the end of the long game, right? So when you see these little chitlets and widgets and stuff that are like patches or quick fix or band-aids, all I see is it's going to be more expensive and it's going to be a lot worse. So do it right. This is our public service amount. Do it right the first time. And we'll keep telling you until then. Most of our panelists had to drop. I want to respect everyone's time. I'm sure we've got other meetings and wrap ups before the holidays. I want to thank everybody for coming. Albert, Crystal, Beatrice, thank you for skipping your next meeting and hanging out with us and sharing the good word. I love this panel so much because everyone here, I think why I love it is because everyone here is so passionate about what is at stake and what is important, and that it's, some people are into web performance and it's fine. This is important to everybody watching, everybody listening, everybody viewing. It covers everybody. And I want to say thank you so much to everyone for the work you do and coming on and telling us to do better. And hopefully everybody takes that to heart. And this time next year, hopefully we have some progress and some new things to talk about. I want to thank my co-host Adam for coming in and being a smiling face on this show. This is his first State of A11Y, and I believe he will be with us for the next one as well. So this is Jesse from This Dot. Thank you to everyone who stayed with us the extra few minutes and skipped their holiday meetings or the holiday party. And we'll see you in the new year with more about accessibility, digital inclusion. We'll come up with a whole list of names and get that out there. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Put on the thank you for joining us chat. And find the end button. Don't know where the end button is.
Well, we're just going to have to entertain YouTube for a while.